C'est vraiment formidable d'être ici à Montréal encore for InCyber. And with that, I'll switch to English and keep your ears a break. You know, as I was coming in, I was giving some thought to my career in this area, and you know, seeing the people in uniform with the cyber on their shoulders was really, really invigorating because I did start my career there, and you know, it's been almost 25 years since I was hacked at the Department of National Defense. And back in the day, you know, we had, count them, 5 sensors across all of Canada to be able to see the malicious actors. Now, the malicious actors, I still remember their names. Slippy and HV2K from the state of Texas. And guess what they did to the Department of National Defense website? They defaced the website. They put up a picture with a funny scrawl on it. I think it was the minister, and we had to review everything. Quite a different environment back then, when we could go to attrition.org and see who's hacked what sites, and typically it was just a scroll across the site, to the environment today. And so this morning, what I'd like to plan to chat with you about is the evolving threat environment, right? This wake-up call that we all have around how the threat actor has evolved, how they are now targeting our environments, and nobody is outside of the reach of these malicious actors. And then I'll shift gears. Microsoft sometimes is victim zero. We like to call ourselves customer zero as we're trying out our new products and services. But unfortunately, we've become victim zero as well. And so the stuff that we see is coming to you. And so our lessons learned, our examples, can stand you in good stead as you look to protect and safeguard your environments. And so if you were hoping to hear about Windows 11 and recall, this is not that session, so I'll turn my back and no, we'll go on from there. You know, the numbers are staggering. 600 million attacks against our customers every day. 600 million. And these are everywhere from password sprays to ransomware to other environments. We see this in the news all the time, and we know that there's a very active threat environment that's out there. We know that customers need to have that commitment to security. You need to be able to put your assets together and have the resources to be able to protect against this defender. Now, just a quick subnote here. Those of you who've seen my presentations in the past, typically they have as many words in all of the presentation as you see on this slide. So I'm not going to read through all the slides, but this is such a critical topic, such an important area that I've left the slides as is and used the standard slides from the business so that you can take them home with you and then review them. And so that's, I think, critically important. So our CEO has really come forward and reinvigorated our approach to security. You might recall that in 2003, we had our Trustworthy Computing Initiative. The world was completely a different environment back then. You know, no iPhones, no cloud, no current operational method of doing the business that we're doing. And so we are at a point of inflection where we have to change what we do. So we've got a unique perspective on this. I have the good fortune as National Technology Officer, I get to work across all products, across all customers, across all provinces and territories in Canada, and I have 48 of us in different environments. Sometimes it's staggering when you think about the scope of the Microsoft cloud environment. Over 200 data centers in 60-plus regions around the world, connected with the second largest network in the world from an endpoint and a capacity perspective. We carry a lot of traffic. We've seen some things. We see 78 trillion signals a day. 78 trillion. You know, that's a huge number, and we as people don't deal well with numbers. There's 100 trillion cells in our body, right? If everything that we saw was a cell, we're pretty close to that number. It's pretty staggering. We track over 1,500 threat groups, these actors that are out there across communities that are doing this. We are the biggest security company that you've never heard about. And you know, I often joke with colleagues that how many people have put Windows 11 on their security budget? Like almost nobody has done so. But these newer products, these newer tools have security infused within them and have meaningful approach to helping then build out that added security in your environment. And we've got bespoke and security tools that support and complement that across our Azure services line, built into our productivity suites and security tools in their own right. 34,000 dedicated security engineers working across the business. And so that heft and that power then can help safeguard you and your environment. So what are we seeing? We monitor over 600 nation-state groups, and we name names. And this has sometimes a challenge for us. So those organizations that are out there, you say, well, why aren't they naming names? One of my colleagues was up on Parliament Hill, and they were talking about misinformation, disinformation. And they were talking about misinformation, disinformation campaigns from the Russians. He went home to his house in Alberta, and shortly after he went home, his wife received a phone call with the origin of Russia on her cell phone. They have no connections to Russia, never seen that before, but all of a sudden they got this call. And he feels it was a reach out to say, hey, we know what you're up to, we know what you're watching. And so for those of you working in this area that are naming names, put on some operational security for your teams and let them know that, hey, people are being watched. We feel it's critically important to name names and to call out these organizations. So we have the Russians, whose principal cause is causing chaos and uncertainty in the environments. With all the elections that are underway right now, causing chaos, uncertainty, misinformation, meets their goals of being able to influence things in the world. North Korea has a very, very sophisticated cyber adversary state-sponsored activity around ransomware. It's proposed that a large part of their ballistic missile development is funded by using ransomware and being able to support that. Iran has great capabilities, and we see that now in conflict areas as Iran is having the conflict against Israel, and I have a slide on that in a moment. And China is active in this space. And their targets are across everyone, targeting IT areas, targeting education and research. And we've seen everywhere from K-12 schools to higher education being impacted across the country. You know, we've been called in to assist higher ed in their restoral activities as they get back to their normal. Government, and then within government, that includes healthcare. And healthcare, not only from the hospital perspective, individual physicians, right? Going right down to the doctor, because individual information is currency. If I can now use a medical record to create fictitious people, I can now fraud the CRA on tax incomes or benefits and whatnot. And so we see this wide range of areas. Think tanks and non-government organizations. During election times, we have seen that professors in universities on political science are being targeted for their thoughts and views. And so really the reach is really quite broad, and we need to help inform everybody and help get everybody aware of what their needs are. I was on a panel yesterday, and people were asking me, what's the best approach to help get people to manage their own cybersecurity? I was in the oil and gas industry talking to people there, and before every meeting, they had a safety moment and talked about the reason that they have safety to keep their people safe. What if we had a cybersecurity moment before every conversation? Hey, do you have a long password? Hey, have you reused your password? How do we get people to understand those communities? Another eye chart here. Again, this is from our digital defense report. You'll see that the United States and Israel are most targeted within their own geographies. But the next up is Canada, and Canada being targeted as a country and individuals that have value for these actors. And so, yes, the numbers are smaller than what we've seen in other nations, but it doesn't mean we're outside the fray. And I think a week doesn't go by that we don't see that somebody has been exploited here within Canada. And so we can't afford to be complacent around those tools. So look, these adversaries are very sophisticated. They're well funded, and they don't get scared. We had the SADS, the unfortunate case where we detected state-sponsored actors within our network. And we started remediation measures to protect ourselves and protect you, our customers, against that state-sponsored actor. They knew we saw them, and they didn't move. And they watched what we did, and they paid close attention. And then when we made a move, they made another move, like a chess game. And they continued to watch. And so these actors don't just get up and go when they're in your environment. And so we need to be able to have new approaches, not just technology approaches. We need to work with the governments, with policymakers, in order to put in place stronger controls, stronger penalties, and other activities to really help dissuade these actions. Yesterday at that panel, there was a conversation around how the Russian state-sponsored actors endorse and pay for the criminal element to do their dirty work. And essentially the rules that they give the criminal actors is this: don't attack us, but do what you do to other people. And so having this criminal aspect is also something that we need to put in place strong laws, strong tools against. You may have heard our president at Microsoft Worldwide, Brad Smith, talk about a digital Geneva Convention, and where we talk about how these tools could and could not be used. We see these tools being used in warfighting. We had the unfortunate situation that in January, before the Russians invaded Ukraine, that my counterpart got a phone call from our Microsoft Security Threat Intelligence team and was told to call the electrical power plants, the water treatment plants, because they were under attack as the adversary started to prepare the battlefield. Imagine that call that you get. Hey, we want you to call our customers and say that there's a virus. Don't we always tell you that we don't do that? In these cases, we had to do that. And so we need to put in place those controls to protect communities of interest and the broader environment. Another eye chart here. I tried to put kind of what we see in the threat environment on one slide. Ransomware continues to increase. 2.75% increase year on year on the amount of ransomware. And we see this human targeted ransomware. As defenses get stronger, they start to work on the wetware. They start to try to trick us even more. They start to work on the individual to get us to click on things. We see deepfakes starting to come in the marketplace, and I'll talk a little bit about the AI threat near the end of the conversation. We see identity threats continuing on. They don't break in, they log in. And so password sprays and whatnot continues to be a challenge, and being able to exploit individuals' identities. And then finally, distributed denial of service attacks, just taking down networks and being nefarious in that way. So we've got this as a threat environment. And quite frankly, when we look at how this evolves, these things don't come stepwise changes. These threat actors evolve over time. And it takes many years for that sophistication to grow. And we've had a little bit of a wake-up call. And for those of you that have been impacted, by these threat actors or by the incidents that happened with Microsoft, if you're still working through that, come see me afterwards, and we will have a great conversation around how we can help you out with that. Send our regrets that that's happened, and we're doing better to try to shore up against that. So as victim zero, Satya Nadella made a company-wide announcement and said, we need to change the way that we do our business. And he reasserted the importance of security to the company. And not only reasserted the importance, but put into place some concrete actions and measures to help shore up the security of our environment and the security, therefore, of your environment. So this is a multi-year activity where we are really changing the way that we do our business, changing the way the whole company works in order to address security. If you have a question around, do I do security or do I do functionality? You always do security. It's an all-hands-on-deck approach to security. There are features, if you watch our features and our plan of record for our products, that have been delayed and shelved as we go back and shore up that infrastructure and doing things that are quite different than ever before. We've engaged in revitalizing our culture. Satya has said many times that culture eats strategy for lunch. And so we've revitalized that culture of security within the organization all the way through the top, and then put in place strong governance capabilities. We've put the urgency on security, have a huge security push, not only in engineering, but across the entire business. All of us that have the Microsoft badge have had to take Secure Futures Initiative, Code of Conduct, security, privacy training, again, to ensure that we all understand the importance of that. And we're building out new processes, because you can well imagine that when trustworthy computing came out, we as security practitioners relied on things like common criteria, like certifications. It was looking at strengths of mechanisms in particular products. Today's world is quite different. It's all talking about security management practices. How well do we shore up our environment? How well do we do audit and backup? How well do we do that? So we need new processes, new techniques to be able to do these things at scale. So you'll see that we've kept our secure by design, secure by default, and secure operations. And we commit to being a more transparent company. One of the biggest concerns we heard from our customers as we were doing comfort calls with them was, hey, Microsoft, we know that there will be days that are bad for you. We know that that might impact us. Please let us know. Please be clear. Please be concise. Please be transparent about what happens, because these have ripple effects. And so we have redoubled our efforts to be consistent, clear, concise with what's happening in those environments, because we know that your business depends on our solutions and our tools. So when Igor came in, our Chief Information Security Officer, he became Chief Information Security Officer in February of this year. He really shook things up. The first thing he said, though, is there's some things we're not going to be able to tell you about. These state-sponsored actors are so sophisticated, they're going to look and see what we're telling our customers, and they're going to pivot. And so when we're transparent, we're going to be as transparent as we can without revealing secrets to the adversaries. But here's some things that we've done. There were 730,000 applications within the Microsoft environment that he just shut down. He went in and said, look, these applications, we're not sure of their heritage. We're not sure if they've gone through a secure push. Just turn them off. And if someone complains, then it might have been important. And then we can revisit that. But he turned them off. And we all have talked with developers. We all know developers. How do they develop their code? Well, typically they develop them with all the permissions. And so think of this. You've got 730,000 applications, all with full permissions. That's a big security threat, isn't it? Shut them all down. How many applications do you have in your environment that the developers rely upon? Have you taken a look? If we've got 730,000, you might have 10 or 20, just saying. As we look at the cloud sprawl, we talk about shadow IT. Developers come in, they spin up a virtual machine. Oh, I got pulled to something else. So what was the password of that virtual machine? Oh, I got to spin up another one. And they set up another virtual machine, they set up another, and developers have multiple virtual machines that are running. We had 5.75 million orphaned virtual machines, right? And think about it. It doesn't take long for that to happen if you've got 100,000 developers. Like, that happens very, very quickly. All of these things give a toehold, right? This is the scope and scale of the threat that's out there, the scope and the scale of the technical debt that's out there. As you consider your environment, do you have orphaned virtual machines out there? Do you know how we found out about these orphaned machines? The chief financial officer, because they were being paid, they were paying for these virtual machines. And so this really talks to this partnership of all our communities to come together across our business to be able to beat this threat. And so we need to have that culture and improvement and governance there. We need to have continuous improvement. I was speaking with the Department of National Defense last week, and they were talking about the cyber threat environment. And they said the only way that you'll win is to continue to innovate. It's the innovator that's going to win the cyber battles. And so we need to have this continuous improvement, this thought about innovation, about building out and keeping ahead of the threat. And how do we do that? We do that by protecting identities, protecting tenants, protect our networks, engineering systems, monitor and detecting threats, and remediate that threats that we see out there. I'll stop a little bit on the protecting engineering systems. For the longest times, developers had their own machines. They'd set them up. They wouldn't follow policy or governance. They'd have their passwords just to see how things work. That's no longer the case at Microsoft. A development machine is the same as my machine, is the same as our colleagues' machines. Multi-factor authentication under policy with the strict guidelines. No deviations on that. And so it's important that we bring those things into focus as well. Oh my gosh, what an eye chart. Culture and governance. We've changed the culture and the governance around the company. Our security officials, our engineering leaders now report directly to the board of directors. The CISO also, Igor reports directly to the board of directors. Their compensation is now tied to security in their environments. And so they have hit them on the bottom line around the security that's there, and they need to provide regular updates to the board of directors around how this works and how this becomes a priority. It's in each of their performance reviews. To make sure that everybody knows that this is critical and important to the business. We have a Cybersecurity Governance Council and many Deputy Chief Information Security Officers across different businesses, accountable for different parts of it, from engineering to our security threat intelligence, to our incident response, to our governance communities. We have Deputy CISOs there that are accountable for delivering tangible, measurable results on security in their environments. And they also have commitments then to reach out and be transparent to you, our customers, to be able to work that through. Also being able to have the veto power to be able to put in place the security governance and compliance requirements. And then we've built in our principles. So we have the required processes that are there that make sure that every product is cohorted into our security environment. And sometimes we forget about that. Like when we talk to many customers, they ask us about our SOC 2 reports, they ask us about our ISO reports or OSFI certifications. Know that when we go general availability, each of our products is automatically cohorted into the next audit report. And so we build them from the beginning to make sure they meet the compliance and security requirements and built throughout the environment. And we're building out new standards and paved paths to work through. We provide you a snapshot into this environment. Charlie Bell leads our security engineering, and he provides monthly updates on our Secure Future initiative. And so you can hold us accountable to what we're doing and see how we're progressing along our paths. And we're being held accountable by governments around the world, by regulators around the world, as we need to address them and tell them how we're shoring up and securing their environments. We've come up with the hierarchy of security needs. Now, this is not news to any of us in the security world. The great thing about being in security, I've been in the security world for 35 years, it's the same thing. Secure identities, secure endpoints, secure data, watch your networks and know what's going on, automate your... We've been talking about the same thing. It's time we get on with it. It's time we get on and build out those tools and those techniques to ensure that we meet that. We also need to work on the operational side, make sure our people know each other, make sure that our incident response works. The last time you want to make sure that you know who your incident responders are is when you need them, right? And we found that when there's an incident and you need to talk to people, often they don't know who to call, or the person that they call is no longer with the company, or. Make sure you know who to call and how to report. Who gets to call the ball? Who gets to say when you go live again? How does that decision get made? Do your senior execs understand how that's done? A brief talk on generative AI or AI as we close off the session. A lot of conversations around AI. There'll probably be a lot of people in booths talking about AI and the scourge and threat of AI. I ask us all to double click on that. We in cyber have been working with AI for decades. Polymorphic viruses, intrusion prevention, and all those things. We all use AI in our day-to-day routines. There's a lot of hype over the last 20 months around generative AI and how it's changing the world. We are one of the leading providers of generative AI, working closely with OpenAI. We conducted a study earlier this year to find that generative AI is not being used a great deal by malicious actors yet. And so we need to prepare and guard ourselves for that, and we need to prepare ourselves and guard ourselves for when our companies and organizations use that. And so when we think about the AI risks, you'll hear a lot about these risks: jailbreaking, prompt injection, inference attack, token bleed, model theft. We'll hear all about these things that are unique to AI. I ask us to pause and look at the things we used to do: code injection, SQL injection, classifier, theft of resources, logic bombs. We've seen these things all before. It's just a different vector. And so let's not say the sky is falling. Let's understand how these tools and techniques can help us and work through this. So we do see new AI-enabled attacks coming through. AI-enabled spear phishing, whaling, and I heard another one the other day, and I'll probably get this wrong. Pig gutting, I think it's called these days. It's a pretty visceral type of conversation. But essentially, it's using generative AI and AI to scrape your social environments, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, and maybe it's your executives understanding the cadence of their business, and then doing targeted attacks. So slowly but gently bringing in the threats, painting a picture, creating a narrative, and then going in for the kill at the end to be able to get the big bucks. This last one that's in the Digital Defense Report was eye-opening to me, and I thought I kept abreast of this stuff. This idea of using generative AI to create resumes, curricula vitae that are accurate against particular jobs, and then looking to instill malicious actors in your organization by pretending to have the skills that they didn't. Yesterday on the panel, there was a conversation around an interview that was completely deep-faked by using these tools. But there's great capability in defense. And so if you're not using AI for your defense today, it's time you did, because the adversaries are using AI to find new exploits. And so with generative AI, you have new ways to determine what's happening in your environment, determine what the malicious code's doing, to be able to do research, to be able to do things like having your note-taking done. Generative AI provides your responders with great tools that remove the drudgery of their jobs. How many times have you looked at an incident log and seen it kind of drop off? Incomplete sentence, and an actor went to, holy cow, this IP address only has 3 groups of numbers because they've gotten busy doing something else. Generative AI helps take that away and put in place that very granular reporting and conversations. Again, we're having a call out to everybody in this audience and our government partners to work together to help solve this scourge. We believe an ecosystem approach is required. We all need to lean together to help not only our larger organizations, but to help all our customers and even the smaller organizations to advance security. We also see that AI security has new threats, and we need to address those. And so we're fully in support of new regulation legislation in this area, where it's clear, concise, and specific. Guardrails in these tool sets as well to make sure that we guard against tomorrow's AI that might do us harm. Your call to action is to go and download the Digital Defense Report. I was been told that this one is perhaps the best one yet, with its granular report of the threat actors, as I talked about, and the experience that we've had in our Secure Futures initiative, so that you can learn from us, Victim Zero, and be able to shore up your environment. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today. I'd like to thank you for your attendance, and if there's any questions you might have, I'd like to offer an Ask Me Anything and give you the mic.